Let's Talk Marketplace.
Der Marktplatz-Podcast mit Ingrid und Valerie.
Ein herzliches Willkommen zurück bei Let's Talk Marketplace an euch, meine lieben Hörer, und auch an meine liebe Valerie. Meine Co-Hostin ist nämlich zurück an meiner Seite, also zumindest virtuell. Und das freut mich sehr. Valerie, wie geht's dir? Ich habe dich zugegebenermaßen vermisst.
Das kann ich sehr gut verstehen, weil wir haben jetzt ja die erste Folge aufgezeichnet ohne mich. Und von daher freue ich mich auch sehr, dass ich wieder mit dir am Start bin. Und ich würde sagen, damit wir nicht zu unhöflich sind, sollten wir vielleicht auf Englisch switchen, weil heute haben wir was ganz Besonderes vor. Wir haben heute unsere erste internationale Folge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you were really busy and organized us a guest for today's episode. So why don't you greet him?
Yes. So, welcome, Antoine. Happy to have you here. Actually, Antoine and me met a few weeks ago when I was researching for also the Marketplace Uni, because we became also internationally and changed our complete course languages to English. And therefore also new partners came up, like the company from Antoine. And I'm really happy to talk with him, to have you as a guest here today, because we are talking today about international marketplaces and keep a focus on France. So, welcome, Antoine.
Thank you, Valerie, and hi, Ingrid. Very happy to be with you today and to give you some insights about what we're doing at Neteven, and of course also information about international marketplaces.
Mm-hmm. Great. It's great to have you. As listeners of Let's Talk Marketplaces know, Valerie and me have announced in our last episode of last year that we want to do a bit more internationalization in our episodes and talk about different international markets. And today we thought we'd start with the direct neighbor, France. So, Antoine, it's great that you're here, but maybe first tell us a bit more about yourself and about Neteven, and who are you, what do you do at work, and what is your connection to online marketplaces?
Sure, with pleasure. So my name is indeed Antoine Riviere. I'm one of the founders of Neteven, that is a marketplace service provider, software platform, and services for fashion brands. We exist since 2005, so we entered early on in the game. One of my partner is was the first eBay employee in France. And we founded the company 18 years ago now, working with companies that wanted to sell on marketplaces. In the early days, it was eBay, obviously, but also Amazon and the first marketplaces that arose in France at that time. So it was mostly consumer electronics and media products. But with time, we moved in fashion, and that was already 10 years ago. And now we focus solely on fashion brands from the entry level, so more on the affordable side, up to the premium and even very luxury segment. So we are based in Paris. We operate globally. We are connected to roughly 80 different marketplaces, and we provide both the technical integrations and the customer success management.
Mm-hmm. And I would say that's also, due to the long experience of Antoine, that's also the reason why we invited you today. So thanks for the introduction. And happy to have you here. I think today we have a 3-country talk, right? Because Antoine is located in Paris, Ingrid in Munich right now, and I'm in Thailand. So thank you also for the early morning one. I would say, I think some news happened in the last 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
So, what do you say, Ingrid?
Yeah, let's go over to the news flash for today. News flash. Right. I would like to start with something that our last week's guest, Malte Karstan, posted yesterday. It's more of a rumor than an actual news, but I found it interesting. He wrote that several vendors, Amazon vendors that he has been talking to, have received following messages from Amazon Retail that they are going to end the partnership in the following months. This is something that I have been hearing from the market several times now. And Valerie, I think you know more about that. Is Amazon pushing vendors away?
So actually, I mean, this is not a really new thing, right? I mean, I also was surprised that Malte wrote this because this happened already in 2022, that Amazon wrote to some specific vendors, hey, it's lovely to work with you, but in X month we stop working with you. So go and be aware and start with the seller business. And that's what happened again. So they got a message of like, hey, you have 11 more months. So till January 2024, until then we buy your products and then go and find your way. And I mean, I was 4 years in the vendor management around 2013 to 2016. And at that time, we already know as vendor managers that we are becoming obsolete in the future. So the vendor management team will decrease and will get smaller and smaller. And therefore they are, they are changing the not so important vendors and switching them to sellers as if they are able to do this. So I think this is just a second wave. And this also matches to the news you had that Amazon takes 50% of a seller's revenue. So, I mean, makes more sense, right? Amazon wants to get more profit itself. The wholesale business is not so profitable for them. So what's the conclusion, right? Switching them to seller.
Let's keep with that. That was a study by Marketplace Pulse. They looked over all the different pieces that Amazon takes from the seller's revenue, and they ended up with saying, okay, around about 50% of a seller's revenue stays with Amazon, which is quite a lot, actually. So can you still make a profit on Amazon? And if so, who can make a profit on it? Antoine, maybe. What do you think about that?
It's true that Amazon has diversified their ways of revenue. So of course there's the commission on the sales, but there's also the FBA fees and the marketing fees that are growing steadily. In terms of profit for the seller, because at the end of the day, that's what counts for our clients, it's having the right mix in terms of exposure to their products. So making sure that they are seen, and therefore often the marketing budget has to be present, but also in terms of pure margin. As mentioned, so we mostly work with brands, so the manufacturers, and in the soft line, so in fashion, and the margin also squeezed. So especially with the recent inflation rate that grew higher for them and put more pressure on their margin. So 50%, even if it's an approximation, so is really high, and needs to be compared with the cost that the brands occur when they are going through retail and bear all the other costs. So it's still possible to make a profit, and our clients are in that segment, but it needs to be monitored carefully, especially on the marketing side, because the different programs don't deliver the same kind of results, and there a lot of money can be invested, and ROI has to be monitored carefully.
Valerie, you are always looking into the cost structure of different marketplaces with Marketplace Uni. So is 50% really high if you compare it to what Zalando takes and About You takes and so on?
I mean, this is like really difficult to answer because all of them have different cost structures and services behind it, right? So if you like put all together from Amazon offers much more possibilities compared to Zalando or About You, for example, in terms of advertising, right? And I would say in terms of fulfillment prices, they are all pretty comparable, especially if you go to other countries. And at the same time, I mean, Amazon is kind of inventing every year new kind of fees, right? So, and they are all rising their fees. So, yeah, I mean, this is a question where we would normally have an ECTA alarm.
Yes.
It's like, it's dependent on. Is ECTA also working in English, by the way?
It depends on. What would be an IDO? I think that's something different.
We have an ECTA and IDO pick. Yeah, it's pretty much depending on also category wise, because you have also different commission fees per category. So it's pretty much depending on category, type of product, size of product, weight of product, country. So yeah, this is not so easy to answer, to be very honest.
Again, no simple answers here, I see.
Yeah.
Right. What else do I have? Let's look a bit on the international news here, as we have an international episode. ASOS is opening its so-called marketplace. They already called themselves marketplace, even if they actually weren't, because partners sent their products to ASOS and ASOS fulfilled them. But now ASOS is trying to put that fulfillment part on the marketplace partner side, so that partners have to fulfill by themselves. So a new real marketplace for fashion, Valerie? Something interesting with ASOS?
Yeah, to be very honest, super interesting, because ASOS is not really like going outside with like, hey, now this is the marketplace, because they did it for boutiques as well. Now it's called Partner Fulfills. It's a bit like still under the radar. So it's really also difficult to get more information. And so I have the feeling that everyone is trying to get more information, but they are like such just sliding into it. But you can also see, for example, Adidas is already on the platform of ASOS. So I guess that could be a very big, new, interesting marketplace, just depending on how they work. But I still don't have any more information. So if someone has more information, or if ASOS hears this and want to share with us more insights, then you're pretty welcome, because this is super, super interesting, especially for fashion, shoes, sports. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So on this, maybe, so we are in contact with ASOS, and we've been for quite a long time. And indeed, the Partner Fulfilled program is meant to onboard brands that are part of the portfolio or segment of brands that ASOS is looking to recruit, and it works as a marketplace. So it's a totally different program than the one they used to call marketplace, that was for boutiques and vintage goods. So there it's new in-season products that are close to the type of products that ASOS is already selling, and it also goes in. So it's the same category. So men, women, beauty, and yeah, to fill you in with more information.
Yeah, looking forward to that. That sounds like a very interesting player. Let's stay in the fashion world with you two fashion people.
Yay!
For the last one. Because one other marketplace started last week, which I found interesting, and that is Best Secret, normally a shopping club for off-price fashion. And they opened their shop to a marketplace version. And I wondered, isn't that a contradiction in itself? I mean, typically designer brands don't like to broadcast that they off-price their products. But there now on the marketplace of Best Secret, they are supposed to openly address that to the closed community of Best Secret and say, look, here are my off-price, high-value designer things. Why don't you buy them here instead of my own shopping platform? What did you think about that? Maybe Antoine?
That's definitely a trend. The off-price channels that open marketplace, in addition to that traditional flash sale type of activity. And there's a benefit for both parties, because one of the bottlenecks is always the logistics when it comes to organizing a flash sale event, where in some instance the consumer received the goods in an unusual long time, because there needs to be some cross-docking activities. We have a very clear success there with VP, that has integrated a marketplace approach in their mix already a few years ago, and with great results. And the brands, of course, at the beginning are cautious about the fact that they don't want to overexpose their brand. They don't want to give the impression that they are a discounted brand. But with the fact that there are subscribers, and that the events, basically the sales that are organized, do not appear on Google and cannot be searched like that in search engines or price comparison, they still can manage the fact that they do 2-3 events a year and manage them through a marketplace approach, shipping the goods directly from their warehouse, which is very efficient and can also provide more margin to the brands.
I totally agree to Antoine, and I already talked with Best Secret. I mean, it's not last year, to be very honest, because they were somehow already starting with a beta version of starting, and now they just announced it in the PR. But it was not a big coincidence. I mean, it was maybe a coincidence that ASOS did this as well last week. But they already did it for the last year, and they just started with already companies. They are already selling via Best Secret. So they was just like, okay, let's do a hybrid model of like buying products from Best Secret and also selling it via the marketplace. And I think it's not a surprise because Best Secret already hired, I think, 1 or 2 years ago, one of the big heads of Zalando marketplaces. So it was obvious, kind of. And now they are starting. And I think that's a good approach, to be very honest. And as we have those season switches, for example, at Zalando, we really need to have a solution for the overstocks and end of season products. So it's actually a good one to have also closed shopping clubs, which are also becoming marketplaces to, sell also your overstocks or second season products.
Yeah, I'll have a look on that. That's quite interesting. I would still have a lot more news today, but I do have to look at the time. So I'll cut my newsflash for today. Thanks for your opinions. And I think it's high time to start into the topic of the week.
Das Thema der Woche.
So, let's talk about France. I think it's quite fitting that we start our tour through international marketplaces here, as France isn't really far away, neither geographically nor culturally, and e-commerce development is comparable to Germany, online spendings too. It's a EU country which employs the euro. So it's not that difficult to sell there, no tax and currency trouble and so on. And still, it's not a country that most German sellers and brands think of first when they expand internationally. That would be Austria, of course, because that's just how German sellers tick. But actually, should it be France? Antoine, should that be the first place to start?
So there are 3 main markets, e-commerce markets in Europe. Geographical Europe is Germany, the UK, and France. The UK is more and more difficult to work with, and so there will be, of course, with time, and I hope so, ways to work more, so in a simpler manner with the UK. So France is really a good option, as you mentioned. Very similar in terms of terms and conditions. It's a very digital market. E-commerce has been present since many years. There are international players in France, but also local players. One of the very important fact is that, and especially for fashion companies, return rates are much lower than they are in Germany. And that can generate, therefore, a very interesting revenue stream, additional revenue stream for brands that want to expand internationally. From a logistics standpoint, it's also an easy one to manage. There are no specificities, and the carriers that operate in Germany can most of the time also deliver in France. So, I would say it's a very viable option.
And I agree with Antoine on the part of like the return rates. Maybe you can also give us maybe a range of a return rate in France, like to be able to compare it. But for example, now it sounds like, oh, it's super easy to go to France. But I would say there are some specialties in the marketplaces. They say like, okay, if you want to sell in our marketplace, then please speak our language, for example, in the customer support. And that's, I would say, quite a big challenge for easily expansion to another country. What would you say about that, Antoine?
Yes, that's true. There was going to be a but in what
of course.
Indeed. the very generalist marketplaces, so you can go along with an English-speaking customer service. When you enter into the more curated ones, the more premium ones, they indeed want you to have a customer service in French.
This is like La Redoute and Galerie Lafayette, right?
Exactly. Yeah. La Redoute, Galerie Lafayette will ask for that, and there are others, department stores that will ask the brands to have this kind of service.
Cdiscount as well, doesn't it?
Cdiscount, no, you can go along with English.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for indeed La Redoute, Galerie Lafayette, VP as well, when you operate in France, Showroom Privé and many others, you would have to have French-speaking customer service or writing at least. But that's a calculation that needs to be done. And there's always the possibility to do a market study to check what the potential is and whether it's worth having customer service in-house or to outsource it if it's also an option that can be considered by the seller that wants to enter the market.
Yesterday, I read a comment by someone commenting on my LinkedIn post who said that France is the online marketplace country. So how true is that? How important are online marketplaces for the French e-commerce economy?
It's a country in which a lot of marketplaces were created. Prime Minister that became Rakuten was originally from France. And that's also where major retailers became marketplace. Fnac, for example, was one of the first one, and they started their marketplace using a technology that they bought. And actually, the technology that they bought was funded by Adrien Nussenbaum and Philippe Corot, that created miracle when they left Fnac. And so I guess most, you too, I'm sure, but most of the audience knows about Miracle. That is the largest marketplace operating system for retailers. And the first projects that Miracle launched were in France, logically, since it was and it is still a French company that, of course, expanded internationally very successfully. And therefore, yes, there is a strong tropism on marketplaces in France.
Mm-hmm. What are the most relevant online marketplaces in France? You already named a few, but those were very fashion-orientated. So if you look on more general platforms, what are the main important ones?
Okay, wait, I have just one question about the return rate. What is the fashion return rate? And then you can answer the other categories.
Yeah, sure. So there, what we see is between 10 and 20% for fashion.
Fashion return rate in France.
Right,
yes,
that sounds like paradise, doesn't it?
No, I know because so I'm usually on the other side, working with French, Italian, Spanish brands that want to expand in Germany, and that's a major blocker.
Yeah, I figure. Business. Someone telling them, 40 to 50%, have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Even more sometimes.
Even more. So even more. So that's clearly something that is different. And we're talking about France, but it's the same in Italy and Spain that are also two large markets.
So, okay, do we get a commission if they all now trying to approach France now?
I think we should. Right, loads of people coming in. I mean, if you do a calculation on that, you can pay a lot of French native speakers for your customer service if you have those kind of return rates, I think.
Yeah. The only thing you have to think about is if you're, for example, from Germany going to France, you get to have higher logistic costs, obviously, right?
Yes.
But due to the difference of the return rates, that's also what I teach my participants in the marketplace only always is due to the much lower return rate, this is not that big issue because, there is so much different in the return rate.
Yeah, you don't pay the way back very often. And one thing to factor in as well, just to be as comprehensive as possible, is the fact that product data has to be provided in French as well. And so there's also there some adjustments to be made. A lot can be automatized, but nevertheless, I still have the focus on fashion, but you cannot use Google Translate to translate a product description.
ChatGPT for it, no? I also heard
not
that
yet,
already.
not reliable enough, believe me.
Okay, but maybe we have to talk about that one in another episode. Okay, but now back to your original question. What are the most important marketplaces in France besides fashion?
Yeah, sure. So in France, Amazon and Cdiscount are probably the largest in terms of generalist marketplaces. Cdiscount being more geared towards home, consumer electronics, toys, and there are also other significant marketplaces. I mentioned already Fnac, that is also in the consumer electronics, cultural goods, and home equipment. Fnac has merged with Darty. They are part of the same group now. And Darty is also a very interesting marketplace for home equipment, including furniture. In furniture, there's also Conforama. There's also Rue du Commerce. Boulanger for consumer electronics is also interesting. Price Minister is also in that segment. There are smaller ones such as Ubaldi, for example. And what we see and what we've seen over the years is the fact that there are more and more vertical marketplaces in specific segments. One of the largest growing segment in consumer electronics has been refurbished goods, with a clear leader there that is Back Market, that is international, started in France as well, with it would be the equivalent of Refurbed, that has launched in Germany. Back Market being present in the US, in Japan, and many other countries. There are also DIY type of marketplaces, Mano Mano, Leroy Merlin, that is part of ADO, very large company that is global. Supermarkets as well, a bit like Real was for you in Germany. Intermarché, Carrefour, Leclerc launched their own marketplaces. There are segments vertical in the kidswear segment only, in the beauty, Nocibe, the equivalent of Douglas. We see also launch of watch and jewelry marketplaces. In the UK, Catchin recently launched. There's, as mentioned, Flash Sale that has been very successful to grow in that segment. VP, so Vente Privée, Showroom Privé. Part of VP is Privalia as well, but more in Italy and in Spain. And so there are many many others. Maybe one important one to mention in the sports vertical is Decathlon. That is very big, and that's the kind of mapping that we do to understand not only where the international marketplaces are present. For example, Zalando exists in France. It's significant, but it's much smaller than local marketplaces in the same category. The same applies for Italy or Spain, where you have local heroes that are far bigger than even Amazon.
What about Amazon FR?
It's big. Amazon FR is big. And as it is the case with other countries, Amazon has local specificities, not only in terms of product data required to create the products, but in terms of product categories that are in highest demands. So in France, Amazon is very successful and by far is the leading e-commerce website, not only talking about the marketplace aspect, but also the 1P. And it's still very much related to home and to some categories about personal equipment, but it's not as fashion as it can be in other countries.
So much input. I thought about like doing this, like I posted like a few weeks ago a fashion quadrant, I would say, about the relevant marketplaces in fashion in 2023. And I thought about doing this maybe for France because it's really like so many names and so many different categories, which are really not much known to the German market, I would say. So yeah, quite a huge possibility also to increase there if you are aware of all the language and translation topics, right?
Yes. Yes, indeed. And what is interesting, and that's the reason why I like working in this segment, and after 18 years, I'm still very much enjoying it, is that it changes all the time. And there are segments that were untapped until now that are now definitely open to that kind of distribution method, marketplace. And that's true in every categories.
So what would you say, Antoine, what is like the newest upcoming topic marketplace this year in France?
This year in France, the trend is also accelerating when it comes to department stores. The very traditional department stores, Galeries Lafayette, started some years ago. You see in Germany that KaDeWe has now a marketplace model. And in France, one of the main openings this year that we are part of as well is Printemps. And Printemps has also an online pure player branch that is called Place des Tendances. That is full price in season that has just opened, hasn't yet done any ads about it, but there's an underlying layer that is powered by marketplace as a distribution method that is going and spreading in the distribution, moving from wholesale to e-tail, powered by marketplaces.
Yeah, that's what we see here as well.
Yeah.
So maybe just because time is ticking, so last question from me, Antoine. The diversity of marketplaces in France can be a bit overwhelming if you start there. So some tips, 2 or 3 tips for German sellers and retail brands who want to start in France. How do they go about choosing the right platform?
It's really much related to the product category that you are in. Of course, you can start with a generalist marketplace just to test the water, knowing that they are not as stringent in terms of criteria to sign up with them. And then really do your homework on selecting the ones that are close to the brand image that you want to convey and the audience that will be a good fit for your products. Knowing that, as it is the case with German marketplaces, the ones that are on invitation are more and more selective. They want to be able to get a transformation rate as high as possible. Therefore, they carefully choose the brands or the sellers that they will work with.
Mm-hmm. Right. Valerie, anything to add? Or are we now all looking forward to go to France and polish up our school French?
I would say in a summary, France is a super interesting market, but it's also a challenging one. I know also from former integrations that also French marketplaces are pretty picky in like who they get on board and who they deny to onboard, and that they're also sometimes a bit more complicated to integrate. So it sounds super easy and like a big potential, which it is, but it also has definitely challenges, which are sometimes more in the details or in the operational topics. That's how I experienced also, expansions to France as like coming from a German or DACH perspective, I would say. Yeah.
Right. Right. I have to wrap it up now, but thanks to you, Antoine, for all those insights. I think we're both a bit, full of possibilities here now because there's so many interesting marketplaces. And in Germany, it's a bit easier looking at the relevant landscape. Right. But I learned a lot and I now feel fully motivated to dust up my old school French because it seems like an interesting market to go into. Right. Thanks to you for being with us, and thanks to our dear listeners who went with us through our first in English episode. Thanks for listening. Right, and maybe if you have one country that you would like us to visit next, we are open to suggestions. Always talk to us. And of course, like and subscribe and comment and all those things. You know the deal. So, thanks for listening today, and we'll hear each other again in 2 weeks, if you like.
Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Das war Let's Talk Marketplace, der Marktplatz-Podcast mit Valerie Dichtel und Ingrid Lommer.